Hey everybody, KevinJJohnston here. Just letting you know that tonight's show has to be pre-recorded because I have to pack my bags and make a trip to a different town. Currently I am in Cocoa Beach, which is the northwest of Costa Rica, and I'm staying at this absolutely lovely resort where you can buy condominiums for about $120,000. Yeah, nice pool, cool bridge right over here, which I will now go across. A lot of expatriates are in this town. I've had a really good time in Cocoa Beach since I got here just a few days ago. But because I have to pre-record, what I'll do is I'm just going to walk around town, get you a sense of how the town feels, what it looks like, what you're up against, and so on. But also make all my commentary that you'll need to hear on property here in Costa Rica, property in other countries like Panama and El Salvador, telling you what I know about Mexican residency and telling you everything I know about finance. So let's start with it. The Cocoa Beach is due west of the town of Liberia. Liberia is in the northwest, about an hour away from the Nicaragua border. Liberia does have an international airport where your flight could land. You just jump in a cab or have someone pick you up. So I'd say about, in good traffic, about 40 minutes or so to get yourself over here to Cocoa Beach, where the town is very representative of what Western Florida, or even some places in southern and southeast Ontario were 25 years ago, where you've got a good combination of some slightly modern structures out there, but mostly everything was built in, I'd say about 20, 30 years ago. Morning, hola. Morning. Gracias. It's a gated community here. All right, so this town of Cocoa Beach, I'll just keep showing it to you as I go along and answer some of the questions that I've received over the last few days, now that many of you know that I'm in Cocoa Beach. First off, this town is very much opposite what Uvita is. I've been in Uvita for 5 months now. Cocoa Beach is very lively, whereas Uvita is very quiet. Cocoa Beach property values are lower, like about a third of what the cost would be, depending on whether or not it's a modern condo corp. There are some condo corporations in this area that are trying to sell individual condos for about $350,000, but then they're charging these massive monthly fees of over $700 US per month. And that's some of the Canadian developers that I've been talking to. And I'm going to address that shortly. What I'll say to you here is, if you're going to be buying a condominium, the first question that has to come out of your mouth is, what are the monthly fees? A couple things that are really cheap here in Costa Rica would be property tax, very inexpensive. Many of the houses that are on my listings right now have less than $900 per year in property tax. That's Uvita, Dominical, OHL, and a few of the other places as such. Property taxes in this area, some of them are very low, to the tune of $300 or $400 per year. Water is very cheap here, depending the season. All right, in the dry season, like what we have right now, water prices are higher. I'm not going to say considerably, but I will say between double and triple, mainly because it's tougher to get fresh water in this part of the country with it being as dry as it is. But electricity is still horrendously expensive. A lot of people are paying anywhere, and I think this is the conservative estimate here, anywhere between $350 a month and $500 per month if they run their air conditioners at very low temperatures. What I have found is that about 78 to 79 degrees Fahrenheit is where you should be running your air conditioners to keep your electrical bill below $300 a month. Electricity is expensive in this country. Nobody who lives here seems to know why. I'm theorizing, because I just don't know yet, but I'm theorizing that there are no coal-fired plants in this country. There are definitely no nuclear plants in this country that are creating electricity for anybody. And hydroelectric, it might be around given the number of rivers and waterfalls this country has, and the elevation from which these rivers and waterfalls will be flowing from. Some of these mountains are about 5,000 feet high. So if water is flowing in a downward cycle all the time, sure, there could be, I didn't say there is, could be hydroelectric power being generated. But it's not like the waterfalls in Costa Rica are like Niagara Falls or Victoria Falls or any of the bigger ones as such. The waterfalls here typically are about 10, 15 feet wide. And they might fall 20 feet or so. So generating power on something like that is probably not going to be anywhere near as consistent at all for a large town. It'd be inconsistent for smaller areas because you still have to contend with the dry season, and when that happens, the waterfall flow is going to stop in some cases. So I don't really know where Costa Rica's electricity is coming from. I'm going to surmise, based on everything I have not been able to discover, that a lot of it's coming in from Panama or from Nicaragua in the north. So please, please, please understand, this is a developing country and electricity is expensive. You will save in water, you will save in natural gas, for example, because you're not heating your homes here in Costa Rica. You're only cooling them. So that natural gas that Canadians and Americans pay to keep their houses warm in the wintertime is irrelevant here. You'll find that people either have barbecues with propane or their stoves are propane. And propane in this country is very inexpensive. I'm thrilled at the price of propane. Also considering the rental car that we have runs on propane. So we were able to drive the better part of 6 hours on $28 US in propane. And that was fabulous. The vehicle has a backup reservoir of gasoline, which you should fill both when you pull over, but the propane helps immensely. So those are your monthly expenses. They, on the average, I'm finding that if you're buying a brand new house, your operating costs are about $6,000 or less per year to keep that house afloat. Entirely dependent on how much AC that you want to have. Now here in Cocoa Beach, a lot of the structures look like this. The locals are called Ticos, T-I-C-O. And in the real estate industry, if someone says it's a Tico house, then that means it's not a new build. It means it's built according to the culture of the Ticos here in Costa Rica. So a Tico house, they're not the best. Actually, they quite suck. Here's an example of one right now. Right, they'll build them with whatever they can find. A lot of them have roofs that are made of scrap sheet metal. That's a very common thing here. A lot of their walls are also scrap. So in some cases, where the Ticos are actually able to live in towns like this one that are full of hustle and bustle and full of expatriates with tons of money. The land's been in the family for a couple of generations, and you'll see that the house, they just keep repairing it with whatever they can find. I saw a couple of houses where they had wooden skids. They were actually just pulling wooden skids apart, and a couple of days later, one big hole in their wall had been completely replaced with skid wood. And then I, through Google Translate, told them about Tremclad. You know, get the black Tremclad and spray it. You want to make sure that that kind of wood lasts, because I used to build Halloween haunted houses outdoors with skid wood, and I can tell you that within 30 days it warps when you leave it outside. Well, that's what the Ticos do. Everyone says, well, what happens when you buy their property and gentrify the neighborhood? Well, what happens is the Ticos will take the money and move further out of town. Like, to them, if they got $300,000 US for a Tico house that's literally falling apart, they're ecstatic. They are very happy. And the locals here, they know where to go for the deals. They know how to make deals. Obviously, they speak the language, they know the culture, so they can get their hands on whatever special prices that they want for anything. There's also something to pay attention to, and that would be sale prices of condominiums and houses. There are two prices in a lot of cities in Costa Rica: Tico price and paleface price. That's right, if you're white American or white Canadian or white in general, doesn't make a difference. they will show you different prices, and that's where knowing the language and the culture is a very potent thing to protect yourself. So you can bark out saying, "Nah, amigo, too much." Start walking away. And the prices here on everything, including restaurants, are all merely suggestions. So I suggest highly that you learn some of the more important phrases, especially in negotiating, or you hire a Tico from a different town who has no loyalty to the town that you're negotiating in, and teach them poise, how to keep the facial expression in place, and have them do all the speaking for you. But I also highly recommend that you record every conversation that you have to play it back later, just to see if there were any other meanderings or dealings that were going on behind your back, but directly in front of your face. Now, knowing that, with them knowing that you don't speak the language. So that is something you absolutely need to do. Now, as for property, if I was going to be buying property here in Costa Rica, I would do it in Uvita. I would buy, or even Dominical, I would do it there because the potential for earnings are the highest. Like right now, places like Nosara and Samara and whatnot, the housing is just too expensive. There's too little that you get for your purchasing power there. In fact, you have no purchasing power there. And with Uvita being up and coming, new airport and new university going in, they've got the highway that's been completely revamped in the area. That is going to be the area where all the millionaires, in fact, it is the area where all the millionaires are going and investing now. So if I was going to invest for profit only, I would do it in Uvita. If I'm looking for some fun and for some action, I wouldn't live in Uvita. I've done it now for 5 months, and what I can say is it's a very quiet community. At night, there's no real nightlife, and there's no real parties going on and so on. There's a lot of restaurants, good ones. The food is incredible in that area, but you simply don't have nightlife that you would be used to in larger cities like Toronto, Calgary, Ottawa, New York, Los Angeles, and so on. A place like Cocoa Beach, especially in the evening, as soon as the sun goes down, it becomes incredibly lively. There are people filling up every bar and restaurant, at least until the end of the high season, which is going to end now in about 2 weeks. What was explained to me is that when the high season ends, obviously summer is now coming up very shortly in Canada, the United States, and Europe, so people go back to enjoy the weather there. The Ticos start to come back into town, and the restaurant prices drop for what we call summer, but they don't call it summer. They actually call right now summer. With the prices dropping the way that they do, all the gringos take off, the locals move in, and apparently prices become incredibly inexpensive to be in the area. All right, that's what we know about Cocoa Beach. Whew. Some of the things to understand though about buying in Uvita, the cheapest listing that I have is $348,000 US. That gets you a 2-bedroom house with a pool. And make sure if you're buying a house in Costa Rica anywhere that it comes with a pool. Without one, voila. Without a pool, you're not going to be selling your property. And even though the pools may only be 6 foot by 9 foot, which some of the pools we've had access to are, even 10 by 8, things like that, still make sure you have one. Even if it's small, make sure your house has a pool. You have almost zero resale value without it, unless someone's just looking to knock down what you've built. Houses, though, in Uvita, I find them pricey, but I also find that you can very, very rapidly rent them out for a couple $1,000s a month. In some cases, the bigger 3- and 4-bedroom homes are getting $3,500 US per month during high season to rent. So you'll earn your keep there, you earn your money on rent, and when you sell the property about a year later, people are making minimum $100,000 profits on it. So if you're into profit, Uvita, Dominical, that's where I would buy. If I'm looking to be around a lot of people and in general just have a lot of fun, then I would be in places like Cocoa Beach, or I would be in San Jose. Now, factor this in. If you're buying a house in San Jose, I highly suggest you do not. The reason being is you're getting a house in that downtown core, which is an awesome city. It really is good. From an action standpoint, your house might go up a couple $1,000s a year. And if you bought a house in San Jose, the capital city, you would want to list it the day you bought it, because it'll take that long to sell it. Some of the houses in San Jose have been for sale for 3 or 4 years. I don't have an answer for you as to why that is right now, beyond the fact that it's not private. Like, there's nowhere in San Jose that I would consider a quiet and private place, because it is a very big city. It's a very active city. It's very alive, and it's very different from what it was when I was here 22 years ago. Like, San Jose was, I'd say, maybe even a third of the size that it is now. It really did grow. I was shocked to see how big the city had become in my 2-decade absence from this country. So I wouldn't buy in San Jose. I also would not buy in San Vito in the south of the country, because those properties will never go up in value. And that town, albeit it's nice, that town, almost nobody speaks English, and the property values do not increase there. San Isidro is another one. That's the town that everybody who lives in Dominical, Oachal, and Uvita will go to buy groceries. Why? Because it's got incredibly inexpensive groceries in comparison to the West Coast. And it is a city, no matter how you look at it. There's a soccer stadium there with about 10,000 seats. They've got a pro team that plays there, so the town can be lively, especially on soccer day. But I wouldn't buy in that town, because once again, you are roosters are everywhere. You are not going to make a profit on the place, to anything more than a couple $1,000 a year, maybe. And San Isidro, just like San Jose, you buy it, you list it, so it's for sale the whole time that you own it. And it'd be the kind of thing also where in those two cities, San Jose and San Isidro, or even San Vito, if you got an offer on your house, you need to take it even if you're living in it. So it's not a wise investment. In fact, I wouldn't even call them an investment. You gotta invest in places where you know someone is going to buy it from you and allow you to offload the property if you need to do so. It's not like Canada, it's not like the United States. You can't list a property and have it out the door in a couple of days. It just doesn't happen. I mean, I work with a couple of really good realtors in Alberta, who I'm sending leads to. People from Ontario are looking to leave and go to Alberta. I'm sending them leads, and houses are selling in less than a week. You know, that ain't the way it works in Costa Rica, just so you know. Even in towns like Uvita, your house is not going to sell in a couple of days. It's going to be a couple of months. So at any given point, one of the pieces of advice I would give to anybody is just keep your property for sale, really, no matter what town that you're in, because you just never know if you're going to get catch someone's eye. If someone's interested and they're prepared to make some kind of an offer, you should seriously consider it, especially if there's a high amount of profit in that deal for you. It is a different country, so there's different ways of doing things here, and even the wealthy act differently with their money here. I notice there's a lot of millionaires that will invest in this country, but these very same millionaires who invest here, well, they're cheap, and I don't like hanging around cheap people. So I've had numbers of meetings where I've had millionaires. They want to meet with me, and they wanted me to pick up the tab on their restaurant here, and I did no. Of course I'm not doing that. No, I did not invite these people out. They invited me out. And the simple rule in life, if you want to be considered somebody with good manners, is if you are the one doing the inviting, you're the one buying it. And when I get called out or invited out and someone has the temerity to ask me to pay for the entire bill, that's not a very serious businessman in my eyes. And I'm not going to say that I'm offended, but I am going to say that I'm irritated by that notion. There was one meal that we had together, and I had explained on the phone that I was at a barbecue earlier that day, and this was for a different listing, And we ate like, ooh, we ate well. I mean, I had 4 pork chops because they were just so good. So I showed up stuffed beyond belief, even though it was 3 hours later. So I had cappuccino, and these people ordered everything under the sun. And the bill was over $280 US. And really what it boiled down to is they were just picking my brain. They wanted me to give them a whole bunch of free information and a free meal. And that is something you do have to watch out for. And these were white folks from Canada doing this, by the way. So please watch out for that. If you're going to be talking to anybody here, especially white people, they, for some reason, try their very best to do things in the manner which I just described to you. Always go and see the waiter with Google Translate if you have to, and tell them that your bill is separate. And what I did start doing after that, and I'm glad I started doing it, is I just started handing a 10,000 cologne note, which is about $21 US. I would hand that over and I would say, this is for my bill, you give me change later. I started doing that only when it was a group environment. So that way I didn't have a bill. Because I'm not playing these stupid games with people. Just be wary of that. Not everybody who wants to meet with you wants to do business. Many times, rich people want to stay rich. They want you to pay for their stuff. And homie, don't play that, if you remember that saying. So getting away from that nonsense now and getting into the real investors here. If you are going to be involved in the property market here, the real investors are the ones who want to jump in your car and go look at property. You know, the real investors don't waste your time with meals and coffees and cake and cream pies and all that stuff. Stick with the real folks who don't have time to mess around. And a lot of the people that I was dealing with were most of them were not interested in fooling around and doing the elongated dinners. They just jump in the car and we'd 4x4 it up the mountain and go look at properties, or we'd shoot down to the beaches and have a look at properties. Those are the real folks you want to deal with. Just a warning about how things function here in Costa Rica. Now, with Cocoa Beach, because there's so many of you that were asking me questions about it, is it a nice place? Well, it's a nice place from the standpoint of how much there is to do. These beaches aren't the best, but they are big. I'm on the beach now. They are big. There's always boats in this bay here, always, and they're always playing music. I'm not even sure what they're all doing out there, if you want the truth. I know some of them are charters, so you can hire some of these guys. The fishing boats, if you do want to do a charter or just maybe get into a boat and coast around, what you do is you talk to the fishermen. Don't talk to the guys that got the big yachts. You don't need that. If you want to see the bay and have a bit of fun in the water for an hour or two, hire the local fishermen and just, tell them you don't want to fish. No fish. Just coast around. They'll think you're crazy. They'll gladly take your money, but you'll pay a considerably lower amount. I paid 5,000 colognes for about a 70-minute boat ride around the whole area there. I didn't bother filming it because I just want some quiet time. So I got together with a couple of the folks that I know here for 5,000 colognes, which is about $10 US. We got 70 minutes in the boat, had a look around, felt good about it, gave them a tip of 2,000 colognes. That's about not quite $4.20 US. And that was that. It was a good day. Went out and had cappuccinos afterwards. That's a very popular thing here. Iced coffee, iced cappuccinos, and hot cappuccinos. Very, very popular. So if you want to be cool, you want to sit at the cool kids table, order a cappuccino. So that's Cocoa Beach. There's a lot of construction taking place. You probably see the cranes over here. There's a lot of construction in the northwest of the country. And in the northwest, the properties here are, like I said, lower, about a third of the cost of what they would be in Uvita for something comparable. Now, if you like it busy, if you like a lot of stuff going on all the time, if you want to be in a neighborhood that's very, very Tico, come to Cocoa Beach. You'll like it. Something else to pay attention to is that because this is the dry part of the country, what you'll see when the sun comes up a bit more, you can see more detail in the background here. The trees at this time of year are not green and not lush. They're quite brown because there just isn't enough moisture in the air, and the biome is completely different in the north of the country. In Uvita, you saw me making videos, there was a lot of lush greenery there, a lot of jungle plants, stuff that you've never seen before. But here in the north of the country, because it is so dry, it's not a jungle, it's forest. So if you've ever been to southern Georgia in the United States or northern Florida, you'll notice there's a couple of palm trees here and there, but mostly it's forest trees and not jungle trees. That's what the north of the country is like. It's very different. In fact, drive the 6 hours it takes to get from here in Cocoa Beach down to Uvita, and you'll see the entire biome changes a couple of times. It's pretty cool. So as for property elsewhere, many of you have been asking me if I'm selling properties anywhere aside from just Costa Rica. Yes, I am. As I told you, there's a lot of people that want to stay in Canada only because they feel comfortable there. That's fine. So we'll get them into a good place somewhere in Alberta. If you are in Canada, the province of Ontario it's becoming a very violent place. There's going to be 1 million people coming in from third world countries in Africa and the Middle East. People who are, we'll call them just less than laudable. And what they will be bringing with them is gun and knife culture, which is their culture. And they're going to be bringing it into a culture where we don't carry guns and we don't carry knives. So you can expect culture shock to be taking place for absolutely everybody, which will eventually drive property prices down. There's already gang wars in the Toronto and Brampton and my hometown, Mississauga areas. There are gang wars taking place now, and people are getting shot and stabbed, and they're getting shot and stabbed every single day. And the Peel Regional Police and the Toronto Police, which combined is only about 7,000 police officers, they're complaining. They want overtime, they want safety pay, they want more training, and so on. Well, this is what happens with unfettered immigration. So with that, all those gangs now moving into the area and behaving like gangs in the area, property values are dropping, and they're dropping quite quick. And for those areas where it's not dropping, the property values in Canada are becoming so ridiculously high that if you did want to sell your property and move to a place where you can be happier, like I am, you're not going to be able to sell your house. Have a look at the map in Google Maps. My hometown of Mississauga is broken up into 9 communities. There's one called Erin Mills. In Erin Mills, houses that were built in the 70s and the 80s, which really are junk, are selling for minimum 1.4 million. Who is going to buy that from you, you might ask? Well, I would say foreign investors only would buy those properties and hang on to them. So how would you get your $1.4 million out of a house like that? Well, you would have to take a loan against it, a mortgage or a home equity loan. Now, that's something else I'm doing for Canadians now. I work with the #1 agent in Canada for acquiring loans. You could take out 75% of the value of your place, and maybe you could even have your place overstated in value. Pull as much out as you possibly could. Let's say it's a $1.5 million home, then you're going to be yanking out the better part of almost $900,000 liquid cash. Yes, you've got to pay the mortgage down on your property to keep it, but at that point, with $900,000 of liquid cash, you could buy yourself a couple of investment properties and hang on to them. Rent those properties out and live in your home back in Canada, or do it the exact opposite way. You know, I know that the house that I sold in Mississauga, it was modified slightly by the new owners, and they're getting $3,700 a month for a 3-bedroom house. And the people who are renting it don't get the basement with that. They get 2 parking spots out of 4, and they only get the top 2 floors. $3,700 a month. So there's money to be made in real estate in the GTA, but not by just sitting on it. You've got to rent it out. So one of the strategies that we are using is getting people loans on their property, pulling as much equity out as they can, and turning it into properties immediately. We're not buying cars. We're not buying clothes. We're not even buying cups of coffee. with that money, it's going straight into real estate investment. That is what you want to be doing these days. I would actually highly recommend, because of the way the markets are all the way around the world, that you're going to have to start making a lot of choices, people. And the choice is going to be, do you want to make money in real estate, or do you want to go to the Leaf game? You want to go to the Habs game? You want to go to the Flames game? Like, what good has ever come of you spending money on a professional sporting team, as opposed to paying your bills or paying your legal fees to get your house either liquidated or get liquid capital out of it? We all have to start thinking differently now. We've got to get rid of our Netflix, get rid of our Paramount Plus, get rid of our Disney Plus. Just get rid of all that nonsense and start focusing on making money. And that's why I'm here in Costa Rica. I couldn't focus in Canada because there just aren't any opportunities there. I came down here where the millionaires are and where the opportunities are, and my eyes have been opened to a better way of living. And this is going to be where I invest, because there will be a high amount of profit in that. If you've got your properties in Canada, then let's get a mortgage on those properties, get you some liquid cash that you can then put into property down here that will make you money. And I would still think that if you had a house in my hometown of Mississauga, somewhere in Toronto, anywhere in Southern Ontario, Vancouver, even Calgary right now, you're making thousands of dollars a month in rent if you get yourselves a good renter. So please scrutinize who you're renting to. But those rents, which could be up to about $35,000 a year in rent, you're very easily making your mortgage payments on that. So you get to keep the house in Canada, and you get your new properties completely paid off in Costa Rica. And I highly recommend that, by the way. If you're going to invest in property in Costa Rica, especially Costa Rica, I highly recommend that you pay for the entire thing in cash. Just pay it off. Because yes, there are ways to get money pretty fast down here. Private lenders they're actually eager to loan money out. But if they like you, the cheapest rate you're going to get is 10% on those private mortgages. That's if they like you. If they don't like you, if the guy thinks you're a jerk or a geek or whatever their particular opinions might be, then the rates go up to about 18%. So that means the strategy here in Costa Rica to buy property is going to be that you go to a private lender. You have to put 50% down on the value of the property regardless. And a lot of people will take these private loans for between 10 and 18%. They'll rent the places out for a year. At a year later, when the property has accrued value, they'll turn right around and sell it and then pay off the loan. And then do the same thing again. You can do that, but keep this in mind, is if you buy a bum property, one that nobody wants, then you are going to be stuck with it, and you'd better make those payments, because the private lenders in Costa Rica, if you miss a couple of payments, they're just going to take the house. You lose your money, they take the house, they take the title, and that's it. And you have no legal recourse, because their contracts they write down here are pretty solid. And this is not Canada, where you can litigate for 4 or 5 years. This is Costa Rica, more of the Wild West. So if they want to get something done, they'll do it. And that's why I'm highly recommending that you just pay your properties off in Costa Rica 100%, utilizing the equity within your homes in Canada. That's how you're going to make money here in Costa Rica. Now, I'm dealing right now with a company in Panama City, and they're doing condominium builds all over Panama and all over the Barbados. And as it turns out, they've broken ground in Bogota, Colombia. And they've asked me to join them. I'm doing my very best to change my schedule a bit to accommodate that. I would like to see these apartments and condominiums for myself. The companies that are doing this are looking to get their hands on the North American audience, the North American investment market. So my understanding is so far, and I will report to you once I get the brochures and the price lists, that a lot of the condominiums that are 3-bedroom are going to be selling for about $200,000 to $250,000 US, with incredibly low monthly fees of under $200 per month. That is something that we refer to as a concrete bank account. So think about in Canada, I think the best interest rate you can get right now, and they call it high interest, might be 5% annually, but the money's locked in. Whereas if you are buying a concrete bank account, like in Panama City or even here in Costa Rica, the money is still there. When you liquidate the property, you get your money back, plus there's the accrued value, the increase in value, and whatever rent money that you've made in that time. And there's a lot of rent money to be made in that time. That's why keeping money in the bank or cash in the bank these days, it's quite pointless. It's not something I would do. My strategy was to remove every penny that I had from every bank account. I've got one Canadian bank account left. It might have $100 in it. And I do that specifically and only so that I can accept email money transfers from clients or from people that watch my podcast. Sorry guys, the sand is getting soft here. That's it. I can take email money transfers and I can make email money transfers, which that's not a thing for Canadians. Just so you understand, Canada, that's not a thing around the world yet. Email money transfers are very much a Canadian thing. So when you're talking to Americans about e-transfers, they don't know what you're talking about in a lot of cases because they don't have it. That's why a Canadian bank account, it's a good thing to have. Such as maybe Coho or Tangerine, which are not brick and mortar banks. They are virtual banks, and they've got a lot of really good perks. Simple things like you get a check, you can take a photograph of the front and the back of the check and deposit it online just by submitting the photos. Hang on to the check until the bank says it clears. When it clears, shred the check and then perform an email money transfer to whomever you wish. Canadian banks are pretty cool that way. I hate Canadian banks because of the fees that they charge. I think the cheapest fee that I know of right now is $11 a month, so it's costing you $130 a year to have a bank account there, but you still have the ability to do what I just said. And ultimately, if you're going to be cashing a lot of checks, you want to do it in a Canadian bank account as opposed to Money Mart, because Money Mart tags you 3% plus a fee every single time. There's all kinds of ways to save money. Now, once American banks and Costa Rican banks and whatnot catch up with that technology or that concept, then you'll be fine. You won't need Canadian bank accounts anymore. All right, I got to talk about scams now. This is a big one. If you're going to be investing in Costa Rica, you're going to get a lot of phone calls from anybody and everybody who are in Africa. This happens a lot. This has happened to me 4 times since I got down here. I, of course, scrutinize everybody immensely. But on 4 separate occasions, we've had Africans state they want to buy a big property or a big business so that they can move millions of dollars into the country. This is a scam that they'll perform. What they will do is they'll put a bid on your property. And in doing so, they will send you what looks to be like a certified check to put into your bank account, and they will sign the deal for your property. And with that fake, well, it's not a fake deal, it's a real contract with fake money. In that time, they will open up a bank account while they're here and utilize the sale of your property to be able to move millions of dollars of probably drug money or smuggling money into that account and then launder it back out on portable devices that are designed specifically and only for moving money fast. Please, 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 if you're going to be buying property here, this can happen and you will lose, because if they're utilizing you as the middleman to get this illegal thing done, the government's going to listen to your side of the story and say, oh yeah, you know, I guess you are the innocent victim here. No, they're not going to look at it that way at all. They're going to say you're in on it and they'll turf you from the country. You don't want that. So contact me. When you are buying or selling a property, get a hold of me. This is what I do. I protect people from these types of scams, from these types of horrible individuals. And regrettably, that's what the vast majority of African countries are doing right now, because there are no laws in place to stop them from doing so. And I'm going to be quite blunt and honest here. Most African countries have got the idea in their head that they are completely and totally at war with the Western world economically. And so the scams in many cases are government endorsed, and the governments there are taking their fair share whenever these scams are complete. So please don't fall for this. And if someone sounds like they're coming out of an African country, contact me immediately. Let me be your agent on this one. let Mark and I, who work here, who know these things, do this for you, because most realtors, not most, I shouldn't say most, I will say some realtors, they don't care because they're going to get their commission whether those checks clear or not, and they don't care. And that does happen. There are bad people in every country. There are bad people in every industry. You don't want to get screwed, because you have to always consider what legal recourse do you have. And you're not going to have much. So you got to be very careful with who you deal with here. Something else I wanted to point out about a lot of the Canadians that have come down here and opened up businesses. I've had no issues whatsoever with Canadians who come down to Costa Rica and open up bars and restaurants or service-based industries like roofing or delivery or whatever they might be doing. No problem there. But the Canadian realtors who come down here, there's a slowness to lifestyles in Costa Rica that's it's a little too slow for me. It's one of those things where it can be done tomorrow. Everything can be done tomorrow. And folks who come down here and open up these real estate firms, they start off with a lot of, as I call it, piss and vinegar, and they're hammering it hard. But then they start to slow down, like the locals do. And so you'll find in many cases you're making phone calls to realtors down here, even the ones that are from Canada and speak perfect English. You're making phone calls to them and you're not getting calls back. They're not showing you what you're asking for. They're showing you what they want to sell. That's a big problem. You'll also find that people do not understand marketing in this country in any way. So it is difficult to find out what you're looking to get your hands on. I'm just warning you that in some cases there's a lot of very petty realtors down here. Some realtors that were down here have actually called me to threaten me. Why? Is because my Instagram channel gets about 5 million views a month. They're watching everything I'm doing, obviously, and some of the realtors down here are copying what I'm doing with making these types of videos. That's fine. I don't care what they do. I just want to say that they are petty. And so there's a lot of bad mouthing that goes on here. Now, I am not going to badmouth anybody by name. I'm not wasting my time with that. I'm just letting you know that there is a propensity here with other Canadians who are not me to be lazy, slow, and backstabbing. Just be very careful who you're dealing with. If you don't want to deal with me, you better scrutinize who you're dealing with here, because the Canadians who have been here for a while, they have learned how to game the system equally as much as the locals have. I guess that's business, as they say. Just please do be careful with that. Now, as for what I'm doing to help Canadians make sure that they actually have the money that they need to invest, over the last 2 years, I've been studying case law, and that's Canadian case law, to find out about the Canada Revenue Agency. And as it turns out, the Canada Revenue Agency, they do get sued a lot by people who don't want to pay tax, or by people who want to know where their taxes are going, or by people who just want to know how the Canada Revenue Agency came up with some of the numbers that they do in relation to the taxes that they wish to charge you. And as it turns out, it's like 99% of the time, the Canada Revenue Agency either loses the case or they settle out of court. So what does that tell you? That tells us that the CRA doesn't have the strong legs to stand on that they want us all to believe that they do. Now, this piqued my interest a while ago, but it's been most recently, like the last 4 or 5 months, I've really dedicated a lot of time to this, figuring out what the Canada Revenue Agency is doing both right and wrong. Where they made a big mistake is in some of their press releases. I think they did it by accident. I don't think they meant to tell us this, but in some of their press releases, which I read, they did mention that they're utilizing AI for the first time to determine what tax assessment numbers should be attributed to each person, and then sending out these letters that have ridiculous amounts of money on them. Like, we find the vast majority of people that I'm talking to right now have been assessed by AI at between $50,000 and $56,000. Why those magic numbers? Not entirely sure. But what I can say is they're all fake. and they're sending them out to everybody. I just helped a lady, one of my clients, this is earlier in the week, single mother of 4, made $18,000 on welfare. That's it. There was no child support and no other jobs. So unfortunately, that family doesn't really have an awful lot. But the assessment that she got was $56,000. And the letter was signed by the same guy whose name goes on almost every letter, and that is Bob Hamilton, who's apparently the commissioner of the Canada Revenue Agency. And from what I can tell, his job is just to speak publicly about how great the CRA is, because I see him speak a lot on things like CPAC. And he speaks a lot to mainstream media. He won't talk to me, obviously, but he'll talk to mainstream media like the Toronto Star, Toronto Sun, Calgary Herald, all the other left-wing garbage, like the dumpster fires. He talks to all of them. And everything with him is, he talks about the importance of paying your taxes on time and how a free and just society needs your tax money for some reason, which of course I disagree with fully, and I object to fully, in that Justin Trudeau has sunk this country into $2 trillion, sunk Canada into a $2 trillion debt that is never going to get paid. And he did so by just printing money whenever he wanted, or just creating it digitally out of nothing, out of nowhere. It's called fractional reserve banking, but it's also, Canada has what's called a fiat currency. Now that's a different thing. I've already done my 5-hour show on what currency is. You can go back and watch that for yourself. But if he's able to create $2 trillion and just give it away to Israel, to give it away to Ukraine, to give it away to Nigeria, and so just giving it away, if he can do all that, then he can keep doing it and stop collecting tax dollars from us, because we are not getting anything in return for it. In fact, I also object immensely that any of our tax dollars whatsoever are leaving the country for any reason at all that are not investment. Funding a war in another country is not an investment. It's money laundering. And if that much money laundering is going on, and people are dying as a result of our taxes being collected and shipped overseas, I don't want to be a part of that tax system, and neither should you. Now, I'm not telling you not to pay your taxes in some kind of protest, which you could do. That is your right. What I'm saying is that you want to do it the right way. So if my 2-year study came to a conclusion about 4 weeks ago, when I was dealing with a tax lawyer, and we went through everything, because I've been communicating with this gentleman for a couple of years now. And it determines that we have found not loopholes, but we've actually found the laws that work in your favor and the case laws where the Canada Revenue Agency is always losing to people that sue them or people that file motions against them. And this is where I come in to help you. I'm not just going to help you get into your house here in Costa Rica or in Panama. What I am going to do is I'm going to help you get rid of your taxes. So let's start with personal tax. With AI making false assessments of you and then writing threatening letters to you, they are going to do their very best to frighten you into just giving them cash. Now, they have military grade psychologists that work with the CRA who write this material. They write these letters that are designed to be as frightening as possible. Then, when the psychologist is done tricking you with their wording, that's when the CRA lawyers take over and change the language where it's still frightening, but change the language to where it protects them. So as an example of one of the most common letters out there, it would be to John Smith. Our records show that you owe Canada Revenue Agency $50,000. So right off the hop, the lawyers are protecting themselves with that phrases. It's our record show. It's not we are accusing you of. It's not you owe. It's our record show. So now they can blame nobody. It's just our records. That's all. The records did it. The office did it. You know, it was done. We apologize. That's so they protect themselves there. The next sentence in all of these letters that's written is, you must either pay the amount above or respond to this letter within 14 days. So they just gave you an out. You can pay it. So what they're saying is you must pay it. That is not legal phraseology saying that you are required to pay it. Must is not a legal term at all. Must is just pressure. So what you do is you call me. And then what I do is I reply to their letter within 14 days. We will then send off a letter, a properly written legal demand of them to discontinue pestering you in any way, because you're asking for time to get yourself legal counsel, which you have the right to do in everything. Doesn't matter what it is. You're allowed to have a lawyer if you get arrested. You're allowed to have a lawyer for court. You're allowed to have a lawyer when dealing with the Canada Revenue Agency or the GST office. If you're being pestered by, let's say, your school principal kids, you're allowed to have a lawyer present for questioning there. You are allowed to have legal counsel for anything you want, even buying a car. If you wanted to take your lawyer with you to the car dealership when you buy a car, that is your right. You have the right to be represented in every single thing. Listen, guys, if you wanted to take a lawyer with you when you're asking a chick out on a date, you've got the right to do that too. I mean, it would cost you a lot, but you have that right. So we get the CRA to back off with the appropriate legal demand that they do back off. And then we're also going to start to put them in the hot seat, because there's a lot of things that the Canada Revenue Agency is going to have to do. If they want 50 grand from you or 20,000 or whatever they want, they have to prove to you that you owe this money, which means you have the right to see their entire case file on you. That is what I do, is I get you the entire case file, and we give them the minimal amount of time that the law says that I must give them in order to get that information to you. And if they choose not to cooperate, and they almost never cooperate, I've never seen them cooperate once with this, that is when we can go to court and perform what is called an ex parte motion, where it's just you and the judge, and you're asking the judge to alleviate the debt because CRA refuses to prove that it exists. Then, if you wanted to, and no one's asked me to do this yet, but I will do it with you, then if you wanted to, after you get that ruling in your favor, we could go to any courthouse in Canada, well, maybe specifically where you live, and file criminal charges against the CRA member who issued that threatening letter in the first place. Is that amazing or what? All right? We have all these rights. This is what I do for people. You got to exercise your rights, because the Canada Revenue Agency, honestly speaking, has no business doing what they're doing. I've made many phone calls to them now, and I've put them all up on my Rumble channel, freedomreport.ca, where you can hear the staff telling me, literally telling me, they're not a police agency. They do not have the power of detention or arrest. They cannot enter your property. They cannot harass you if you tell them to back off. They just cannot do these things. What they are is a sinister collection agency that usually have a judge that works for them, that they can get these permission. They get permission from a judge to put liens on your property, which we then get rid of through affidavits, through motions, and through the proper filing of paperwork. So please don't panic. Those letters that you get were written by military-grade psychologists designed specifically to frighten you. Now, ladies, this is going to sound a bit rude, but those letters are very, very much targeting you. Because here's what they know. They know that when a woman is in a marriage and a letter like that comes in, they know that women want as much peace as possible. They do not want strife and conflict to do with money or the courts or CRA. So they know that if they get under your skin, if they frighten you, that you will take that fear and begin yelling at your spouse, husband, significant other to pay the fee, and the husband is supposed to just give up and say, fine, I want peace and quiet. Shut up, I'll write the check. Don't do that. So if you find yourself as a married couple or a common law couple, if you guys find yourself arguing over these letters that CRA have sent you, well, congratulations, you fell for it. You're doing their job for them. You have to band together. You got to fight them together like a team. And if you don't know what to do, I do. You call me. You get a hold of me immediately. and book yourself a 1-hour consultation. We're going to go through all your taxes and we're going to solve these problems, because these are not really problems. They're just hurdles. Jump over them, move on to the next thing. Do not argue and fight with each other. Don't blame each other. Don't do any of that. Remember, it's the tax system that is broken, not you. It's the system of education that we have in Canada that is broken, not you. And what I mean by that is we don't know what our rights are. People through our education system don't know how to defeat the CRA. Or you don't know simple things like bylaw officers in Canada have zero authority to even speak to you. All right? You can just ignore them, walk away. When guys who want identification from you are asking for it, the only time you have to give it up is when you are in care and control of an automobile. If you're the driver in a car and you get pulled over, or if you're a pilot and you're on the tarmac and they want to see your identification, show it to them. That's when you do it. Beyond that, don't. You have all kinds of rights. We all have to start flexing our muscles and exercising those rights to keep our money in our pockets. And that's what I'm saying with CRA and personal income tax. Get a hold of me, and we're going to get the CRA to be in full defensive mode, because technically what they are doing is theft, extortion, uttering threats, intimidation, fraud over $5,000. There's a lot of criminal charges we can hit these individuals with, and I hate the CRA. You always want to hire the guy that has, I guess, a little bit of an emotional investment in it, and that's me. I despise the Canada Revenue Agency. I saw what they did to my parents back in the early 80s, where they lied about all kinds of stuff, all kinds. My parents didn't know any better. They thought they were doing the right thing. They thought they were being honest people by cooperating with the government. Understand this, the government never has your best interests at heart. They are the liars, they are the crooks, they are the thieves, they are the scoundrels, they are the ones who should be behind bars, not you. If you earned money, you didn't do anything wrong. If they say that you have to give it to them, the odds are good you don't. But you won't know that until we go through everything. Now, there's one last thing that I want to talk about, and that's corporate debt. Many of you are not investing in property right now because you've got small corporations that were shut down during the whole COVID thing, and you've lost money. Now, many of you have corporations that have hundreds of thousands of dollars in small business loans, in Canada Revenue Agency debt, in GST and HST debt. It could just be supplier debt. And you're scratching your head, panicking, wondering how it is you're going to pay that off. Let's say that you had a small restaurant and they shut it down in the last 3 years, and you've got $200K in debt. How could you possibly pay that off if you're not running your restaurant, or haven't been for that entire time? You're not going to pay it off. What they want you to do is they want you to get a bank loan, or even a loan against your property, to pay that CRA fee. How would you like to not pay any of it? And I mean literally zero. And I'm not talking that stupid free man on the land garbage. I'm talking legally. How would you like to get rid of your entire corporate debt? All right, so if it's up to $4 million, this is again me doing all that studying on case law, me working with really good tax lawyers. How would you like all that debt to disappear? Well, you contact me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy your company from you. I'm going to buy your corporation. I'm going to walk you through the entire step. If you do exactly as I ask you to do, your corporate debt is going to go to zero, and all your legal liabilities to that debt will also go to zero in between 2 and 6 weeks. That's going to free all your money up to be able to invest in property. I would much rather see you be investing in some type of a future. It's going to be next to impossible for your kids or even your grandkids to buy homes in Canada, but you can start buying homes elsewhere now if we get rid of all your tax debt. And that is what I do. So if you truly do want to get rid of your entire corporate tax debt, you've got to get a hold of me, book your meeting, get your paperwork ready, send it to me. We're going to go through it. I'll formulate the strategy for you. And within 2 to 6 weeks, you are completely and totally debt free. And I mean zero. And it's all legal. No more phone calls, no more threatening letters, no more faxes, no more emails. Your suppliers are going to get letters from me stating that the debt is gone. They'll be contacting me, not you. And I'm pretty sure you know what my answer is going to be to them. So let's get your money back where it belongs, and that is in your pocket. This is your money. You are entitled to the benefits of the sweat of your own brow. If you're the one doing all the work and our government's just taking our money and giving it away to other countries, we shouldn't be giving it to them. It's ours. It's yours. Let's keep it. And that is what I do. So please get a hold of me. You can see the website address on the bottom of the screen there. Get a hold of me. Book your time with me. Let's get rid of your personal debts, CRA debts. Let's get rid of your corporate debt. Let's get rid of everything that's holding you back. Let's get you investing in property in Costa Rica, in Panama, in Mexico, wherever you feel you want to be. I'll tell you the pros and the cons of all of the above. I could get you into a Mexican residency within 2 weeks. We can also get you into a Paraguayan tax residency within a couple of weeks so that you don't ever have to pay taxes again. These are all the things that we can do. So head over to my own personal website. That's KevinJJohnston.me. Any questions? Use the contact form. Just be clear on what it is you're asking me to do or to get back to you on. And let's start putting money into your pocket. Let's collectively, everybody, let's start making money in a debt economy where no one else knows the tricks that you now know. Nobody knows what I know. And together, we're going to leave everybody else behind who thinks inside the box. That's not going to be you any longer. My name is Kevin J. Johnston. Thank you very much for watching the show. This is the real estate show that takes place every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on freedomreport.ca. Have a great night.